Good morning, Grand Rising, everybody from Paraconomy Inc. It's 10. Can't get this right. 10 a.m., 10:43 a.m. May 1st. It's gonna be May. It's finally May, guys. It's May. Welcome back to Paraconomy Inc. I'm Professor Fun 101. Doing some speculation for the day. Let's see. I've had to astral project to several different enemies here, and my aunt, and my mom, and my family friend aunt, Auntie Di, and like freaking all over the place. And then Sam keeps coming up on my Facebook feed, so I have to assume that there's some party knowledge going around about some of this stuff and that there's like women involved. Just two things I could imagine is that there's drugs and that there's women, and like may have uttered menage a trois, so there's group sex or something going on. And let's see, I've astral projected to my exes and their friends and my sister's friends and stuff like that. The past few days have been me jumping around, snooping around through the astral projection line, looking and sourcing good people and information for help since I'm getting evicted. I'm dead broke, and Sammy and Jessica put me here. But it's my mom, and I woke up and it dawned on me, everybody wanted to see me detransition, and they still do. They might get what they want, but that comes at the cost of a few shorts. And I don't think they've nailed down what those shorts are gonna have to look like in order to like hog tie me out. Because currently sitting here, we have a bunch of people who like aren't top quality people for me to be matched up with. They're unhealthy relationships. They're very vain in places. Um, and the places there aren't, there's a lot of obscurity and things that create confusion and hypertension without recognition. So that's kind of one big reason why we have to look at the possibilities of the enigmatic parts that are being tied to the agenda that they're feeding people. So as long as I am ahead of this part of the precursor procurement of this part in the seancing, then I gain entry to access on the chance to be able to heighten my shadow side awareness. So even though I can't see everything in the shadows here in my shadow work, I can at least start chipping away at the problems that they have surfaced. So a lot of it didn't start with me, so unfortunately, but also good for me, it doesn't end with me. So just because my sister wrote up a huge script of me being a villain with her best friends, it doesn't mean that that script will be completely fulfilled. And now that they have other variables, they can't just write me in all willy-nilly. So like it's this seamstress line on Legacy that looks a little snaky, and they knew, and that's why during funny thing, I poked into California during the writers' strike because of Sam and Jessica and um my exes and stuff. So like all of my ex performer friends that we used to perform together, that's all we were performers. And like then I gave them a place to stay. Um they're all in competition with me. And then my family is also attempting to write me out using um lies. They're using they're pulling from things that they wish to see and then projecting them onto like paper and stories and stuff like that versus what has actually happened and how I'm kind of re-embellishing some of the like highlights between then and now. Because some people are under the misconception that I'm still at I leveled off at like 13. And that's I mean, narcissism brings in the people who they bring in the perception of you that they had when they had the most control over you. So a lot of people are confused and they've been talking to each other, trying to catch up with me, but not genuinely getting to know me. Just things that they want to hear from other people about me. So it's landed us on this like sort of Uno Yahtzee thing where we're trying to like play the game of chance and roll the dice appropriately in a fixed game that's meant to just be a turn based. But people are attempting to get more turns in order to win. So the it's not very efficient. And it's on a lot of faith-based procurement of social anxiety and having to quell those fears by your own legacy. And a lot of people aren't as confident as I am because they haven't done the same thing. But some people are very confident and they do more because they care less. It's kind of an interesting thing because, like, I, at some point, I like drugs and at some point, I don't because it becomes too selfish. And that's kind of where, like, I don't do the same amount of drugs or the same I'm exposed to the things that I like, and that's kind of why if there was more, there it would have been here. And that's why it's not I mean, like, all my exes just mainline coke and alcohol. They don't actually, like, trip dick that often. And when they do, it's probably, like, to make my life harder or to make some I don't think they know what they're doing. This is the thing. I showed them the party, and nobody seems to get where it came from, and they all it's weird. It's a lot of sad predicaments that have kicked me out and away. And so that's why it's a little questionable because, like, why would somebody just pickle me up just to have me detransition so I can't make money and then I have to ask for help from other people unless they themselves needed to see me at my lowest in order to facilitate the need to help me out so that they can enter the leadership role in the dynamic I helped create. So, I mean, if that isn't vanity, we need to look at the function of like pituitary existence here, because if this helps the world grow and mature into something more if this is supposed to get me to level up to beat them at a game I've never played, and I've already, like, kind of won several times, but they keep approaching me at the same angle, looking for new things, and they're not getting that, it makes sense that the party escaped from the people and that it's basically out and about where a privilege exists. So that's very often how popular kids will gain access away from the last party into the new party of clique. And so like that's why it built off of the speculation I had addressed about 10 years ago when I first moved back to Michigan. That party has then like sought out the details within its own like procurement. So that's why a lot like my mom, my sister, Sam, Kendra, Mars, all these women, Sharon Kelly, all these other teachers, the judges, the lawyers, they all know each other. They all benefit from each other, and they all lie to each other. So even if they like each other, there's no consistency in the amount that they will tell the truth every time or not. Because more likely than not, they're going to sweep in a few lies. And it's going to be on top of things that you both need to do, which is why consistency is so important when it comes to magic and like shanghaiing somebody. And if you're going to Shanghai somebody and that information starts to feel like you're going to Shanghai them before you actually do, people will find out what you're responsible for in locking somebody away, keeping them on house arrest, putting them on high conservativeship, and then spying on them and monitoring them spiritually, stalking them, bullying them, harassing them, and then like also detransitioning them, murdering their partner, and like straight up lying to them, slander, the works. Anything you could have thought of to do to a man to hold as an example in this reality between you and I and what it was that I was attempting to gain access to innocence on between two people, then it makes sense that when you add, it starts looking funny, you add six people. And like those people don't have the same bit protuberance about it anymore. And everything's going eroding and like going to the wayside because nobody's actually hitting the mark, which is to go right through it, right over it. And that's something in that sense they have planned out. They've replaced me with John Hannah, the Schloud family, Kathy, and my mom Lou, and then Adam have all like gotten that part of the family together several times without me. And they don't talk to me why they do that. They just assume I should know why they don't like me. So Um, excuse me. That's a huge part as to the wayside that lay waste to my legacy, both between Lapeer, Chicago, and then back to Lapeer, and then to Lansing, to where I'm still popular, but people are starting to get drained over their pickiness. I'm not exactly what everybody wants, nor do I expect to be, but at the very least, I expect a little bit of give and take on what we can build and respect and trust. That seems to be a goal for people who actually put themselves first here. And none of it, what I'm able to see is none of these people have been able to put themselves first in a place where they're putting me. And that's why they're getting mad at me for putting this result back onto their lives as, hey, you got to help me out with some money here. You put me in this, you've gotten me in trouble for this, we got arrested here and here and here. And now all of these things are going to happen. And I'm not going to be able to do anything because I have all of the results back from each and every point of purchase that I've made with somebody else. Which is why if I get arrested and evicted and all this stuff, it ends up on the shoulders of the people behind me who all put me forward in front of their problems for me to face their problems. And so now I'm here, looking down the barrel of the law and basically the actions that it's going to take to make sure people get exactly what they were looking for from me. And that's why they're going to have few surprises because I've been alone for 4 years now, and nobody's, like, touched me in that sense. They in both senses. No one's physically here helping me, and nobody's actually, like, attempted to, like, talk to me. So, like, that could be a huge reason why it's gonna look really funny in the echo chambers of any of the trans rights activists and social justice warrior LGBTQ, um zeitgeist of political correctness. So, like, if that's the case and that has any weight to it and it starts to falter, that the conversation opens up and that whatever it is that's currently happening in that whole conversation on how to detransition people away from the trans community as selective breeding, then it makes sense that they're looking at their white privilege, and they're looking at mine, but they're not looking at my islander privilege to enhance my traits here physically and emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. as a trans person or even as a constructive member of society, as a man, as a whatever it is that people get caught up on because they're not as smooth operating as other people, right? Okay, so like back to this originality thing. Now, when you make yourself original, you become a magnet to people who need that originality in order to guide themselves. Now, what happens is this wallflower thing where even though they're original, you'll level off somewhere. And so people they start to push you into their expectations of what they want to see for the both of you. It's not just you anymore because somebody is now being guided off of your thing and it got them onto a better thing. Now, Sam, Kat, Jessica all have these really radius high expectations to for me to compensate because they're attempting to we're all in the same boat. None of our parents actually like us and or want to support us, and they've put conditional love onto our lives. And most of us, a lot of us are like younger siblings and stuff like that. So it makes sense that a lot of people are in the crux of the baby mentality. So that will trigger off other babies, which means some of our parents were the youngest children for their whole lives. And so like while they're going to continue to look at the sibling placement on how maturity is supposed to have an affliction on their good deeds, that it shows that the legacy has matured or that it has the capability to move throughout the conversation in ways that help construct or add to the dialogue at hand, which is corporal punishment. And whether or not this form of intense corporal punishment should be utilized standardly on all trans people or all islander people or all Melishes and Costellos and all the family, um, in order to create the right, since they enjoyed the results from this gentrification and how they're going to press on the rest of my family because they're all related in order to get get better results. They want their results to not just concave here, but they want them to uplift the entire village. So they'll put a protrudence around whatever it is that was protecting that, and you'll get this really wonky state riddled version where there's less protection here, but there's more like surface area it takes up. So you have to go all the way around in order to get either side of the conversation in competition. So, if my sister also is in competition with me to be more like likable, or she lives in LA so she could become more popular, but she's not getting more popular, it means that the maturity didn't grow and there's an influx on social like battery that she didn't gain access to metaphysically on acid and I did and often do. So, like, if they're looking for this part of the sauce that doesn't include them, I already have a good chunk of it that I've already taken care of over the past 2 decades for my family, my friends, and if you didn't keep up well enough with me, you hardly have any of the seance for it. So, if you didn't know, yes, I take pretty goddamn good care of myself in the enigmatic behavioralism that restates anything that I've been attempting to do in my pilgrimage as a Hawaiian and none of it as a white person gets looked at as a property on intellectual findings and whether or not that's useful for any of you guys. Because if you guys didn't know and you find out through the wrong people and they then you consider something, you go to ask for a service and you get something else. well, then you listened and followed through on the wrong fact or truth to support your argument, which gives you this a little muddy contest between what it is that actually needs to spike here and what it is that needs to be diminished. So if you get to that side of the argument, it weighs out um it's lighter than it was when you like were to have pressed down on it because it should support itself and have very little to do with the outcome. Which is I mean, it has everything to do with the effect that you're looking for. But if you didn't earn that and God gives it to you essentially, and it's just hovering there, and people see it, they get it, but they don't know what you're gonna do because they are you've learned enough about you, but what you haven't necessarily learned is about everybody else who's trying to screw you over, and that's what they're looking for. They want you to do the work and know they're going to be cheating. Weirdly, it's like this reverse psychology of some of the the emotional immaturity. They want to create a problem, so you chase them. And that's how my family shows their toxic love towards each other. Is see, he's just created a problem, so we could just chase him, so we could give him a kiss. Well, I'm not going to do all of that. No, it's not what's going on. But in their delusional heads, it is. So that's how you're able to pull from reality, a fact-based medium, and then apply it to your like subjective opinions and stuff like that in order to form a better dichotomy between what you know, what what's happening in reality, and whoever else is outside of that. A lot of people get tunnel visioned on certain things that are elusive to them. And that's how we know about the autistic spectrum on a line of eyesight is if your focus doesn't actually groom your betterment, you might be on the spectrum. And so if you find out that you focused on the wrong things, it's because you got distracted escaping from reality. So that puts a lot of people at odds ends with what happened here in my face and how other people are looking at my face and they're like, who did this? And they all know how it happened and who did it. And how they want it to happen again because you just gave them an in to feel helpful and build trust, which is almost honest if it didn't come with the variables. But because these people have created a track record on the amount they can actually subdue and extrapolate from my experience, it just falls to the wayside again. They're looking for a stoicism that brings them the foundation for building the next level in their life based off of the work that other people are capable of bringing them in, as long as they keep up with the status quo. So, luxury is being able to tune out reality to maintain the status quo. And if they got caught lying and gossiping about reality over here, and it's getting people caught up with lying, and they're like, "Oh, that's not what he's saying," and it's obvious. Then most people start to they disassimilate. They continue to kind of expand on the main foundation of the friend group in hopes to keep it together over the synopsis of time, because there's a good chance the further away the group gets, the less friendly it gets, the less comfortable it gets, but the more feathers it gets, basically on the outside to get people enticed to come back. So that's how family works. That's how friendships work. And this is why it feels awkward when people they're deliberately ignoring me and they're spying on me every day. So they're stuck spying on me every day using this like enigmatic telepathy and like they're barely like involved. So like that's probably one big reason why my mom and my dad and then Kat and Sam, all these other people, Dakota, Cassie, Jessica, okay, people in my dreams, and then all the women who they're trying to get with, it looks as about as fixed as it is. And that's why you have to look at whether or not these trans girls are acting like men, pimps, and like doms. Because there's a good chance these trans people are not like fully submitting to womanhood. And it could lead down these like having you take actions for some of them are not they're using some of their culture to escape reality. They're not using like and they're not being honest about it. Me, I'm honest about it. I model. It's a huge reason why I'm trans. I talk to people about it and like it makes a lot of money. Modeling as a trans woman makes a shit ton of money. So that's why I do it. And I've let people know that's a part of it. But then there's this whole islander shamanism that got me introduced to it. That's the part people don't want to take the time to pretend to understand. And that's why you end up with the false feelings from the people on eggshells because that's where they anticipated your heart to be flutter flutter and it's like on the ground. So that's kind of how you have to take out the laundry for people because if this was supposed to lead outward towards a lot of prep, like sporty people, and it's getting put that way, but it's only through like drugs, then it we have to go back 10 years ago when I attempted to bridge the gap using drugs, and now everybody's using those same drugs without me. Because that seems like I did all the work, and then nobody's stepping in to actually take responsibility that they were wrong 10 years ago, and they're wrong 10 years now. And there's a good chance if that's true, they'll be wrong in another 10 years. So 11:11 a.m., 5/1/2025. Make sure you guys stay safe out there. I'll be in and out all day, trying to get to the bottom of people's lies and why they actually go to party. So like if you're partying just to show off, well, it's probably time's up. If you're partying because you haven't had a party in like years, I'm getting a lot of dream visions in bookstores and stuff like that. You guys stay safe. I'm coming back in a little while. I'm gonna be chilling, drinking my coffee today. Hallelujah. Shout out, everybody.